Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Probation Officer's Perspective. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Hit that notification bell to all, so you'll be notified of all the new content that I'm pushing. And with that, let's dive into... excuse me, today I did a story on this, on Joseph Corcoran. He was a mass murderer. And in Indiana, facing the death penalty, set for today, December 18th, and he was executed today, December 18th. Started a little after midnight tonight, and then let's get into the story. Since I did the story on what led up to it, and what his crimes were, and his background. Indiana executed Joseph Corcoran. Here's what his final minutes look like. Michigan City, Indiana. The state put 49-year-old Joseph Corcoran to death by lethal injection early Wednesday morning, carrying out its first execution in 15 years. 15 years it's been. His final words: let's get this over with. Like I said in the first video, he wasn't fighting it. Everybody else was fighting it for him, but he wasn't fighting it. He was ready to go. And he knew what he did. They tried to justify that he didn't know what he was doing, but he knew what he did. If you don't, go back to the other video I did 3 days ago and his backstory. Did he have mental health issues? Yeah, he did. Sounds like he did. And just from what in that story I did 3 days ago, and what some of the mental health experts said, some of his family said, I believe it was his sister, but he knew what he was doing when he did it. And he had an arsenal of weapons. So, if anybody thought mental health is real, okay? Let's just put it that way. I want to get to the point here in just a second. But mental health's real, yes. If anybody, like his sister, who he lived with at some point in time, and his brother, they were all looking out. They were his guardians for him. Before, while he was a juvenile, then they wouldn't have let him have, I think it was 32 guns. Well, why would he, or 22 guns? Why would you need that? And if he had mental health issues, why would they let him have all those guns? Okay, let's get on. So the process started just after midnight, Central Standard Time, and Corcoran was pronounced dead at 12:44 a.m., according to the Indiana Department of Corrections. Media were not permitted to attend the execution, but Corcoran's legal team gave one spot to a Capitol Chronicle reporter who was allowed to witness the execution along with Corcoran's wife, Tahina, her son, and one of Corcoran's attorneys, Larry Comp. The witnesses were kept in an area with one-way window into the execution chamber. A separate area was allotted for victims' families, but it's unclear who attended. The blinds for the window were raised at 12:34 a.m., the Capitol Chronicle reported. Corcoran was still and silent, his eyes blinking. It was unclear when exactly the drug, phenobarbital, was administered into Corcoran's arm through an IV line, but the Chronicle reported that his left hand and fingers moved briefly at 12:37 a.m. The blinds were closed at 12:40 a.m., and Corcoran was pronounced dead at 12:44 a.m. The process lasted 10 minutes. In-depth, the solitary life and crimes of Joseph Corcoran, who was executed on December 18th. Joseph Corcoran's case has been reviewed repeatedly over the last 25 years, including 7 times by the Indiana Supreme Court and 3 times by the U.S. Supreme Court. The most recent of which was tonight. Governor Eric Holcomb said in a press release after the execution was completed, his sentence has never been overturned and was carried out as ordered by the court. Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita also issued a statement saying Corcoran finally paid his debt to society as justice was provided to his victims. Corcoran killed 4 people in 1997. His attorneys had argued that their client's history of mental illness, including paranoid schizophrenia, rendered him unable to understand the severity of his crimes and the reason for his punishment. I don't agree with that because if you go back to the story that I did originally, he knew what he did. Now, was he hearing voices or any of that? He wasn't hearing voices telling him to do anything. What he said was he thought his brother and his friends were talking about him, about his parents' murder. And that's what he thought. Which is a form of, if that's something that happened all the time of paranoid being schizophrenic, thinking people are out to get you or hearing voices. But he wasn't hearing voices that said, hey, you need to do this, things like that. Anyways, I'm not a mental health expert, but this is just from experience of dealing with in my years in the law enforcement field in different areas, dealing with people with mental health. Corcoran was executed a few hours after the U.S. Supreme Court denied a request from Corcoran's attorney to stop the execution. More than 24 people were gathered outside Indiana State Prison in Michigan City early Tuesday, protesting and praying over Corcoran's scheduled execution. On July 26, 1997, Corcoran was living with his brother, James Corcoran, his sister, Kelly Nito, and her fiancé, Robert Turner. Court documents say he became enraged when he heard his brother, Turner, and 2 of his brother's friends, Timothy Bricker and Doug Stillwell, talking about him. After putting his 7-year-old niece in an upstairs bedroom, Corcoran loaded his semi-automatic rifle and fatally shot his brother, 2 friends, and Turner. So, like I said, everybody has an opinion. That's your right. You're right to have a say so in whatever it is that you have a say so in. But these protesters that are outside of the prison was over 24, more than 24, because they're against executions. But like I said, in the original story I did, he knew what he did. He had confessed. He did it. He went to the neighbors. He called 911. He didn't call. He told his neighbor to call 911. He went back over to his house. He sat on the porch, and he waited for the cops to come. And when the cops came, you know what I mean? He said exactly what he did. He killed him and why he killed him. So, anyways, so the protesters, you're protesting against something that he's come to terms with. He knew from the get-go, and he was okay with it being executed. He knew that was his fate. Let's get it done. Let's get it over with. He was ready to go. He's ready to do it. Is it right or wrong? Some people say he should just spend the rest of his life in prison because that's more harsh. In a way, I agree to disagree on that. Only because if he's on death row, he's in a one-man cell. He's on death row. You know what I mean? He's not really interacting with anybody. He's not on the main line. He's not out there, you know what I mean, where something could happen. And then just dealing with all the drama on the main line. So he's just sitting in there, and he might like it that way. You know what I mean? Being alone. He was a loner. If you remember in my first story there, I talked about his history. He liked to be alone. He was a loner. So putting him in that cell versus putting him to death. But I mean, everyone has their own, perspective, their own opinion. Mine is he did what he did. He admitted what he did. They still don't know about, his parents, but my perspective or my opinion is that he did it. But regardless, those 4 murders because he thought they were talking about him. So he took 4 lives, and people are protesting to not take his life. That doesn't make sense. I mean, I understand some people's way of thinking. I don't understand, actually, some people's way of thinking. I feel like if you just went out for no reason because you thought they were talking about you. I mean, if I thought somebody was talking about me and I was upset about it, then I would go over there and say, hey, are you talking about me? You know what I mean? And then go from there. I mean, I'm not going to pick up a weapon and go just walk out there without nothing and just take them all out. You know what I mean? He knew what he was doing. So regardless of whatever they say. Anyways, let's get on with this. It has been 15 years since Indiana has carried out an execution because of a lawsuit and other complications that prevented Indiana and many other states from obtaining the mixture of drugs used in its lethal injection protocol. In June, Holcomb and Rokita announced they were seeking to resume executions after prison officials acquired the drug phenobarbital. Corcoran's sisters, whose name is now Kelly Ernst, this is his other sister, had been pushing to stop the death penalty for her brother. I don't remember them saying that in the other first story. Maybe I could be wrong. On December 2nd, she posted on Facebook that she has forgiven him. I believe the death penalty does not address grief or provide true justice, especially for victims and those with mental illness. It fails to bring closure or relief, as I believe there is no such thing as closure, she wrote. Instead, it is a lengthy, costly, and political process. My views on the death penalty have evolved as I'm matured. Nearly 30 years have passed since the events occurred, and only afterwards was Joe diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. I highly suggest you go, if you haven't already done so, go back and check out my other video. Because I don't remember he had 2 sisters. I don't remember his sister speaking on this. I think she said that she forgave him, but she never spoke on the death penalty and was fighting for him not to be put to death. And it wasn't until after, this all happened, he was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. There was several things they said in the story that I did, like going out into the woods and blowing things up, sitting in his room, having he built his own, he was very, very smart and with electronics, and he used to build his own boards and circuit boards, and he made a lock for his door where you had to punch a code in to get in. There was just a lot of signs, and they said he was always by himself. He was a loner. He would be in his room. He'd go in the woods and blow stuff up with explosives. I mean, if you didn't see it then, but now you know what I mean, then, and you couldn't help him then, that's the time when he needed the help. And you should have saw it then, because that's not normal stuff that people do, to put a normal person to on their bedroom door and change the code every single day because you're paranoid. He was paranoid, apparently. And then going up and having all these weapons, and then also explosives, and the things that just the things that he did. If you want to know, like I said, go back and watch my story from 3 days ago. I did about him. The signs were there, and his sister, didn't do anything then. And, those are real big signs of something. Hey, something's not right. You know what I mean? Something's not right. But anyways, that's what I have for you today. So he was executed. It doesn't talk about his last meal or anything like that. But he was executed. It started right after midnight today, and then he was pronounced dead at 12:44 a.m. So yeah, there's a lot to this story, but it just goes like, I don't know. I always think about things, and I've read books, and when I was back in, when I was a kid and things like that. And that is like, back in the old days, if you were found guilty of something, what happened? They hung you, right in front of everybody. Or, they used to have the firing squad or whatever. They didn't keep you in prison for 20, 30 years and then didn't put you to death. That I don't agree with. I feel like if you get the death sentence and you appeal it, your appeal's denied, or whatever, at that point, then it is you have to accept your fate, which he did accept his fate. Everyone else didn't accept it. His attorney wouldn't accept it. His sister wouldn't accept it. But he accepted it. He accepted his fate. And that's the way it should be. Because people say, somebody went out and shot 20 innocent people, got sentenced to death. He shouldn't be put to death. He should just sit in prison for the rest of his life. Let's say he's 20 years old, so the rest of it, say he lives to be 80 years old, he should sit in prison in there where it's costing taxpayers tons of money for every single day. Anyway, that's what I got for you guys today. I just wanted to give you an update on Joseph Corcoran. He was executed today. They did follow through with it. Everybody's got their own opinion. Again, so take it how you want it. I'm just covering the story that they did follow through with the execution, and that it is what it is. He was okay with it. He accepted his fate. That's all there is to it. And with that, I'll see you on the next one. Peace.